And there. Hi, everybody. We are just sorting out some technical stuff and we're gonna get started in just a minute.
You probably want to mute yourself.
I guess I can't.
Can you all hear us okay?
No,
You're coming through on here.
Those of
Maybe
you,
you
those
need-
of you who are online, can you hear us?
are you muted?
No,
Dave?
Dave is not.
Okay.
Yes, Dave is muted.
Got it?
So,
Okay.
so that's okay.
The audio.
We could have been-
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
It
That's
jumped off of me.
Mary Ann, that is,
It says Mary Ann Mallard, but that's Susan Mallard.
it's Susan Millinger, yes, okay.
Susan Millinger just joined.
Susan, you're listed as Mary Ann.
Liz, would you put your, video on?
I can't really hear them.
Well,
Oh, Susan is not muted. I can't.
I'm not host. I couldn't make you co-host, but it's because I'm not host.
Oh,
Susan, can you say something?
Mateo, do you want to make Liz
Okay.
co-host?
We can't hear you. How about somebody else? Somebody else?
Okay, let me try again. Did you know that
Okay.
this meeting is, when you click on it, it says it's the voting and safety meeting on 9/25?
Thank you. This is not the voting and safety meeting, this is CPC.
Yeah.
I
All right.
realize that, but it's rather unclear.
Thank you.
Okay, it is 7:05, so I'm going to call this meeting of the CPC to order. Welcome everybody to a hybrid meeting of the Shutesbury Community Preservation Committee. All members who are present are participating in person. The only absent member, I think, is Henry Geddes. Welcome everybody. Oh, Henry Geddes has joined us remotely, so he's participating remotely. First item of on the agenda is review and vote on the minutes of the August 22nd meeting. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of August 22nd.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes?
No, they were great. Thank you, Elaine.
Seeing no discussion, we'll proceed to a vote. Sorry, Ms. Hanson,
Aye.
Farrell,
Aye.
and Gallo, aye. Wilson,
Abstain. That was,
Reed,
Aye.
Vallejo,
Aye.
Geddes. Sorry, Henry, you're muted.
Aye.
All right, we'll proceed to the second item on the agenda, which is reviewing and voting on the off-cycle grant applications that we allowed to be submitted at our previous meeting. We have one of those that we received, which is the application from the Amherst Regional School District for the high school track renovation project. At our previous meeting, Doug Slaughter gave us some background information about this project. I just wanted, before we proceed to discuss it and vote on it, I wanted to give the applicant an opportunity to add anything if there's any new information they want to share. Otherwise, we'll proceed to any questions from the committee. David, anything you would like to add?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm joined here tonight by Bob Parent, who is the project manager working for the town on this project. Mr. Slaughter is out of the office for a little while, so was not able to join us tonight. So we thought the two of us would come and hopefully be able to answer any questions that the committee might have. I think I joined the meeting a few minutes late on August 22nd, but I believe Doug gave a nice overview of the project, where we are, some of the funding gaps that we're trying to fill by approaching Leverett, Pelham, and of course Shutesbury to make those gaps go away before we hopefully bid the project late this year. We've never been closer on this project than we are today. We've been talking about it for, I think I've been working on it for probably 6.5 years. And we feel like we've got a very solid project with a great designer, a lot of community support. Bob and I just met with the athletic director and some of the coaches and from the high school, and got a very warm and positive review of the project. We did that earlier today. Our goal right now is to move the project toward permitting. Bob will be shepherding the project with our consultant to the Conservation Commission here in Amherst, the Planning Board in Amherst, and the Design Review Board, and the Disability Access Advisory Committee. And all of those committees and boards will review the project this fall. And again, our goal is to get it out to bid later this year. We've had positive conversations with Pelham, and they recently, the CPA committee there recently supported the project or voted to recommend a town meeting, I believe $99,000 toward the project. And we're talking with representatives in Leverett from the CPA committee and the select board. So that's where we are. I don't know if Bob had anything he wanted to add before you discuss or ask us questions.
I think you've covered it pretty well, Dave. One addition is we did meet with the Disability Access Committee in Amherst, and we did get a letter of support with no comments other than they're very supportive of the project. So we're moving it forward from a permitting standpoint.
Thank you. Yeah, I had forgotten about that. I did just want to reemphasize the goals of the project. We all know that the regional track has been basically out of service, almost condemned by the MIAA for the last 3 to 4 years. So our athletes have not been able to train or compete on that surface. We, as Doug mentioned a month ago, we have many months ago transitioned from an artificial surface to a grass surface, an 8-lane track, and then we'll also achieve another field to the west of that, as the plans indicated that were presented to you last month. So we feel very good about the project. A big component of the project is also accessibility, excuse me, making all of the sidewalks, all of the walkways accessible to athletes with disabilities, as well as anyone who wants to view the athletic events, games, and track meets to be able to get there appropriately and through walkways and seating that meets their needs. So that's a huge component of the project. So why don't I stop there? And if there are any questions from the committee, we're happy to answer them if we can. If not, we will email you with the answers later. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee?
I have one question. Dave, can you remind us how the costs are apportioned to the individual communities? So that, Shutesbury is at $136,000, Leverett at 176, and Pelham at 99. Is that based on our share of the regional school budget?
Rita, I was afraid you might ask a question that was more appropriate for Doug. I'm not sure if Bob knows the answer to that, but yes, my understanding is that it was apportioned based on kind of the capital formula. Essentially, Amherst pays about 80% of all capital. Amherst contribution to the capital at the region is about 80%. And I think this was apportioned that way. Bob, I don't know if when all is said and done, Amherst's portion may be slightly higher than that, depending on what the town council votes to later in the year. I believe you recall that Doug said we have an $800,000 ask into the Amherst CPA. We're not sure whether the council will vote at that level to support that large an ask, given that we've already contributed to the project significantly in other ways. But Bob, do you have any more specifics on that apportionment or not?
I believe you're correct in the manner that it was developed. I didn't develop it myself, but I did see Doug's original spreadsheet, and I believe that's what he used. One point on the town of Amherst's piece, the CPA piece, I believe what we ultimately put in front of the CPA was a higher number than the apportionment calculation would suggest. And so if you add up the total requested funds in the spreadsheet that Doug put together, you actually come up with a number that's a bit higher than what our latest estimate is. And our strategy there was to shoot high with the Amherst CPA and see if they were willing to support it. They have been so far, but as Dave indicated, we then have to go to town council to get their support later this fall.
And I will just end by saying, I think speaking with the president of the town council, and Bob and I have been to most of those meetings, all of those meetings with the council and our CPA committee. As Bob indicated, our CPAC recommended 800,000. I will say that I believe the council, I can't speak for them, but the feedback we've gotten is that they would honestly like to see contributions from the 3 other towns, and that additional $800,000 ask reduced later this fall. So that is how partly how Doug arrived at the 99,000 for Pelham, 176 for Leverett, and 136 for Shutesbury.
Thank you.
Could you repeat those numbers just a little bit slower for me, please?
Sure. It's Pelham CPA has already recommended to town meeting 99,000. Leverett is going to be asked for 176,000. And the ask into Shutesbury, according to Doug's spreadsheet, which was part of his application, was 136,000. I should also note that Pelham already gave, I believe, $11,000. So their total contribution, if town meeting votes for that, would be 110,000. And this is all in Doug's spreadsheet that was submitted prior to the August 22nd meeting.
Are there any other comments or questions from members of the committee?
Yes,
Henry?
last go round, there were questions about the surface material for the track. Is it any different this time, or?
I don't remember those specific questions, but Bob has
It had
been,
to do with synthetic track, I guess.
yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, early on, we did pivot, hearing from certainly residents of Amherst, as well as some members of our regional communities. We did hear some significant concerns about artificial surface for the field, so we pivoted to grass field, accepting the fact that playability, number of hours of play, will be significantly reduced on this field compared to an artificial turf field. But in terms of the track surface itself, Bob can speak more to the product. But what we have learned working with our designers, and also talking to other communities throughout Western Mass and throughout the Commonwealth, is that there are very few choices for the product that is used for these synthetic tracks. And in order to compete at the level that our athletes want to compete and need to compete within the MIAA, there are very few choices other than the ones that we've selected. I do know that when we met with members of the Pelham CPA committee, there were questions as to whether we could go to help me out, Bob. It was a non-synthetic track, basically a stone dust track. And I think the response that we provided was that our athletes wouldn't be able to practice, nor would we be able to host meets if it were a crushed stone or a hard pack track. We're not aware of any high school in the Commonwealth that still has such a track, and they certainly wouldn't be able to hold meets there or hold competitions any longer. But Bob can speak to the specific product.
Yeah, the product is a synthetic product. It's a urethane-based product. There are no good alternatives to that synthetic product to provide the level of track and usefulness that most athletes desire and need these days. The days of the center tracks that we probably saw when we were young, have long since passed at this point. So going back to something like that wouldn't achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve here, which is to bring the usability and the quality and the usefulness of this track up to a point that it is now a competitive track that can be used by athletes, throughout the region and within the towns.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee?
Good.
Okay, well, then I will entertain a motion to vote on this. And before we get to the motion, though, I will say, this is an off-cycle application. It would need to go before a special town meeting, which is hopefully coming in the fall at some point. I'm going to suggest that we just follow the normal procedure we do with regular cycle grants, which is vote to approve or not approve. And then that's separate from voting on the actual language of the warrant article, where we just sort of break out which funds any funding that's being recommended would come from. That makes sense.
Yes.
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right,
We can do that at closer to
probably the October.
the town meeting. Yeah, we just need to decide what's coming out of the open space and recreation versus out of the kind of general.
Yeah,
Once
designated.
we've done that, we can go.
Right, yeah. And we're still looking at third week in November,
The 19th.
the 19th, yep,
Looks like it.
for a special town meeting.
Special town meeting.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve, the Amherst Pelham Regional School District application for $136,000 in CPA funding for the, Regional High School Track and Field Project.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. Hanson. Aye. Carol.
Aye.
Pangallo, aye. Wilson.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Vallejo.
Aye.
Geddes.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob and David.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your support, and we will try to keep you and of course, other folks in Shutesbury, apprised of our progress. And again, we're happy to support the presentation of this at your special town meeting in any way we can. So perhaps I'll stay in touch with the chair, and if there's anything we can do, obviously when that gets closer, we're happy to come to town meeting, explain the project, answer questions, etc. So
Great.
thank you. Thank you all for your support. It's a great project. We appreciate it.
All right. We're moving on now to item 3 on the agenda, which is our public hearing. So brace with me. Sorry. Try to get technical. You see that? On your screen?
Yes.
Andy, all right. All right, good evening and welcome to everyone. Whether you're here to share your thoughts about community preservation priorities in Shutesbury or learn more about the CPC and Shutesbury's preservation goals, thank you for participating in this important part of the CPA process. Section 5B1 of the CPA requires that each year the CPC hold one or more public informational hearings on the needs, possibilities, and resources of the city or town regarding community preservation possibilities and resources. So our hearing today is to provide the people of Shutesbury the opportunity to reflect together about our preservation objectives. The committee will draw on what we hear, as well as comments from town boards and our own deliberations for our annual update of Shutesbury's Community Preservation Plan, a document the CPC uses to guide its deliberations on grant applications. The plan has been available on the CPC website for many years, and I hope that everyone who has an interest in community preservation in Shutesbury has had an opportunity to review it. It's thrilling reading. So today, we're seeking comments relevant to updating this plan, such as whether it contains any goals or criteria you think should be removed, whether there are goals or criteria missing that should be added, or whether there's any part that should be revised or clarified. The committee is not deliberating on specific potential projects or past projects or applications, though we can attempt to answer general questions about the application process. If you have an idea for a project, I encourage you to visit the CPC website, familiarize yourself with the plan and our process, and contact us with any questions. But the committee today cannot speculate about or share views on possible future projects that might or might not be submitted to it. Again, the purpose of the hearing, as stipulated by law, is to gather public comments that will help us in our annual update of the preservation plan. Just as a quick overview, for those who are unfamiliar, if you are unfamiliar with the CPC's process, we have a 3-step system for applications. This is to help applicants develop their proposals and save them the labor of preparing an application for a project that would not technically qualify for funding under the law. So first, in December, potential applicants submit a determination of eligibility. On this two-page form, they briefly describe the project and its costs and indicate under which CPA categories it would fall: historic preservation, community housing, or open space and recreation. The committee reviews this form alongside the statute and case law to decide whether the potential project would objectively qualify for CPA funding. At this point in the process, the committee is only deciding about what is allowed, not what is advisable. Next, in February, potential projects submit a full application. This 5-page form asks for more detail, including a budget, a description of matching funding, a timeline, an explanation of community benefit, a list of goals and criteria from the preservation plan met by the project, and other required information. This helps the committee decide whether a project should be recommended to receive funding. Simply because a project is eligible does not mean that it will also be found by the committee to be advisable. Whether a project is advisable depends upon factors such as if it seems financially and practically feasible as described, whether it leverages appropriate matching funding, whether it has support from relevant town boards or other authorities, organizations, or groups, and whether it aligns with the goals and criteria in the community preservation plan. With all that in mind, the committee reviews the application, interviews the applicants and any witnesses whom it invites for comment, and votes on whether to recommend it to town meeting. At town meeting, the voters of Shutesbury decide whether to award the requested funding. So that is our CPA process in a nutshell. The committee is considering holding a workshop in October to help potential applicants prepare their determination of eligibility and application forms. We would only hold this workshop, though, of course, if there were sufficient interest. So if you would be interested in participating, please let us know in an email to cpc@shutesbury.org. All right. Today's hearing will be conducted under the following rules. Members of the public who would like to speak will have 3 minutes to share their comments. Out of respect for others who would like to speak, I'll indicate when a speaker's time is up, but I do reserve the right to grant a speaker additional time if no other person is waiting to speak after them. To aid the committee, I encourage members of the public to indicate as specifically as possible the part of the plan on which they are commenting. Details such as chapter and section titles or page or paragraph numbers are particularly helpful because they will help ensure that we're all quite literally on the same page. We also welcome the submission of written comments, which can be sent to cpc@shutesbury.org before our next meeting, which is on October 17th. I reserve the right to answer questions, offer points of clarification after a comment, ask follow-up questions, or recognize members of the committee who would like to offer a response, have additional information, or ask a follow-up question. Tonight's hearing is not a debate, but it is important that the committee obtains all the information it feels it needs. And similarly, the committee has an obligation to ensure that the public is fully and accurately informed about the CPA, the application process, and the community preservation plan. Members of the public should indicate they would like to speak by raising their hand. For those of you on Zoom, that would be using the raised hand response. And I'll do my best to ensure we proceed in the order in which people raise their hands. Until the speaker is recognized by the chair, I ask you to remain silent so that the preceding speaker can be heard in full. Please, before you speak, identify yourself by name and state whether you are a resident of Shutesbury or not. And when no further members of the public wish to speak, or when a total of 45 minutes has elapsed, whichever is first, I will entertain a motion from a member of the committee to close the hearing. Are there any questions about these rules or the purpose of this hearing? Yes.
Thanks. So if a written comment comes in after tonight, it can still be considered for your deliberation.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
So the committee is gathering input for its update of the community preservation plan, which we'll be voting on those updates at the October 17th meeting. So anything before then, that would be useful.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to enter the public hearing.
I move to enter the public hearing.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion. We'll vote. Public hearing.
Yeah.
Yes, Farrell, Mangallo, aye, Wilson, Reed,
Aye.
Vallejo, Geddes.
Hi,
All right. If we would like to speak, you may indicate by raising your hand. Let us know if you have thoughts about the community preservation plan or questions about the application process. Yes, Steve Price.
Yes, I have a question in terms of submitting a what is it, determination of eligibility? Is it better to include, like, if your project would potentially need a feasibility study and then following up with some construction costs, would it be best to submit that all in one request? Or would it be best to separate that out into just a determination of a feasibility study and then follow up later with a construction request?
So, I had seen, Steve, your, your question that you had submitted to the committee. And I think one of the things we need to, check on is whether or not a feasibility study, is an eligible cost within the open space and recreation section. So my past life, when I was dealing with, CPA funding for housing, there was a particular category called support, under which one was able to do feasibility analysis and get consultants and so forth. It's a little bit fuzzier with some of the other categories. So I would think that would be a question we should probably address the Community Preservation Coalition, which is the kind of trade association, municipal trade association for CPCs. Is just a really good resource. I looked on their website today and couldn't find anything that that addressed this question, but I think it's something I know that Matteo in the past has used them as a resource. They provide technical assistance free to CPA communities. So I think that's something that we would need to verify. And maybe if you could, before Matteo contacts the coalition, is describe what you mean when you say feasibility study. So is that something that you would envision contracting with somebody to do? And is it site identification? Is it putting together a budget? All those sorts of things, like what you're anticipating would be included in a feasibility study.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think what we would be looking for, is because we don't have a lot of that stuff nailed down. So it'd be good to do a study to figure out how much, location and construction costs and things like that. So it'd be difficult to put together a detailed determination of eligibility at this point.
If we find out that those kinds of costs for that kind of a study would be eligible, then I would suggest that if a project is sufficiently complex that it would require a feasibility study before actually beginning work on it, not in your email, you had asked about combining those into one
Yes.
application. And feasibility. And if the feasibility study were to do something that's eligible, I would suggest doing them separately. Because you wouldn't want to make a very large ask to have the feasibility study come back and say this isn't feasible.
All right, thank you very much.
Are there any other comments or questions from members of the public? Seeing none.
Can we make comments now, or do you want to?
Yeah.
So, just in the course of doing some research, this afternoon, I I was reminded that, the Commonwealth has something called, Sustainable Development Principles, which, have, there are 10 principles that have been used, when the state is reviewing applications, all different applications, and they range from, concentrate development and mixed uses, advance equity, promote clean energy, plan regionally. And I thought it might be good to incorporate that into our general criteria. It might replace some of our general criteria, but what I'll do is before we meet again, is just send everybody, this to see if, you all think it would be good to have as part of our general criteria. That makes sense?
Yeah, sounds great.
I have another question.
Yes.
What's the total amount of money that's available for the CPA this year, this coming year?
It is, so these are approximate figures. But the funding is divided up into different buckets. So in open space, there is 14,453. In historic resources, there's 11,700. In community housing, there's 55,453. The budgeted reserve has 32,000. The undesignated funds are $441,087. So a total of 554,693, but obviously if funds are in one of those buckets, we can't just move it into another bucket, except for the undesignated funds.
Which is the one that would fall under the category of recreation?
That would be
Open space? Open space. And are those numbers available on the website or some other place that I could?
I don't believe they're up on the website right now. These are from the town account, so they were in the budget somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
They change.
I know.
I mean, she usually gives you a set of numbers at, town meeting, and I'm sure she will for a town meeting. But it's helpful after you receive the annual amount to put them up, and then we will choose how much.
So we've received, this is the annual amount that we have.
This is what, yeah, these are the figures from
As of annual town meeting.
annual town meeting, plus the money that was appropriated to different funds at that town meeting. This is because I think we put 6,000 in each of the buckets.
So that would be the best time to put them on, right, for those figures, right, for the year. And maybe change them. They didn't change last year, we didn't have projects.
Well, they increased because of what we put into it.
Right, but that includes the 6,000 for funding.
Yeah, the trust.
But then we get the state match. And I don't know when the state match comes in. And that varies every year. It used to be 100% way back when, and
Right.
now it's, I don't know. It depends upon what the legislature does and what the fees are that are coming into the registry of deeds. So,
But we've never gotten 100%,
no, we didn't get 100%.
because we only did half.
We did 1.5% surcharge. Right.
But I can ask Dale when they come in. But-
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna need to know that in order to put together the article for the track field project. My only comment on the preservation plan, I have some revisions that I'll incorporate, and I'll send it out for the committee to review at our October meeting. The most substantial of which is going to be an addition of some specifics about off-cycle applications, which the Community Preservation Coalition suggested we have it
Off-cycle.
The off-cycle applications,
Yeah.
just so that we have something in writing, so that if they come in, we have a system in place.
Does that play at all with sort of the budget? We start allowing off-cycle ones, does it affect how our budget is reported and the way the money comes in? No, it's not a problem, good.
Because we would still have to go to the town meeting to get them to authorize it.
Mhm.
Obviously, we can't approve a project and ask for more money than we have. But that's the only limitation.
But we can draw down in the buckets of money that we have and then go to the unrestricted funds. So say, I think you said like we have $11,000 in open space,
14,000.
14,000 in open space recreation, so we can draw that down and then you can take the money out of the sort of general fund, undesignated, right?
And you can also borrow.
And you can borrow, that's correct.
And
You can borrow, yeah,
Just use
Against
some of
your
the funds for that.
yeah. So if you borrowed, you can, the debt service on the borrowing, we just reduce your, you take it out of that category. So a lot of borrowing is done, for large land acquisitions, so that you borrow over a 10 or 20-year period, and then your annual payments might be $50,000 instead of, $1 million, let's say simply $1 million up front, you borrow over 20 years, $50,000 a year. That's not accounted for any interest, but it is a way of funding very expensive CPA projects.
But not something that Shutesbury has ever done.
We've never done it. It's been done by lots of communities.
Mostly for housing projects.
Housing, but I think open space acquisition. So there's a land acquisition that's expensive, and you don't have enough CPA money. You can borrow.
If members of the committee have other specific thoughts about revisions or updates to the plan that they would like to email me individually, that I can fold into a single document to distribute to the committee for us to go through and vote on at our next meeting, that would be great. So things like sustainable development principles, anything else that you think should be in there.
So one question with the application that we considered tonight for the Amherst Regional High School, that is an out of town, it's not in Shutesbury, but it is part of our regional school district. I know there was discussion for housing and the possibility of collaborating with Leverett on that. Should there be something in here in terms of eligibility and just spelling that out to clarify that?
That a project does not need to physically be in Shutesbury.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the track thing is a little complicated because the town does technically is part owner, right, of that parcel. But that kind of content is something that we want to include in the plan.
And that is something that we actually could do, like we could use our money with Leverett's or with Pelham's and buy community housing projects in their town. And would
yeah, then basically what you do, like it's been done, I think, an example, again, from back a number of years ago, on the Vineyard. So there was a development that was gonna happen in Vineyard Haven. And because it was a place where there was infrastructure, they had a site, and the other communities said, well, we'll contribute a portion. And I believe, it might have been negotiated then that there was, some local preference given, so that let's just, let's say, Oak Bluffs gave money to Vineyard Haven, then they could say, we want at least, whatever the percentages of their contribution, we want there to be local preference, so all those affordable housing developments have to have lotteries. And they have this complicated system, so they can do a local preference, and they can make sure that, like if Shutesbury was giving money to Amherst, because they were doing an affordable housing development, that, Shutesbury residents, would have some preference for some of the units.
So is there any? Is there, that sounds complicated to me, because then, for instance, if it wasn't Pelham or Leverett, then we would not get any credit.
That's right.
In any way for having affordable housing in our community.
That's correct.
So it really discourages us from doing it.
It doesn't in the sense that we'll never achieve 10%, which is the
Right,
that state goal of
Right.
10% affordable units. We'll never get that here. Just a lifetime anyway. It's unrealistic to think that we would ever have. How many housing units do we have?
About
800, that we would have 80 income restricted housing units here.
We have what, 3?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just, the economics don't make any sense when you don't have, infrastructure. You're gonna have water and
there.
sewer,
Yeah,
right? So
but
large scale development here. So the counting, but what the state, there's a lot of people ask that, there were a lot of very wealthy communities that wanted to like give all their money to another community to say, we don't want any housing in our community, here, we'll give it over to you.
Can we get credit?
And give us credit, and the state was like, no, that's not how it works. So it was very intentional to say, you couldn't do that, because there were communities that didn't want any low-income people, any, subsidized housing, and they were more than happy to give their money to some other communities.
Got it.
Good question. It's been tried.
Well, I mean, not that we would not want it,
Right,
but we'd like to get some
right.
credit for doing it.
right.
Are there any other comments to the committee? Again, we'll be talking about the plan on 17th. No other comments from the public? Entertain a motion to adjourn the hearing. Close the hearing, excuse me.
I make a motion that we close the hearing.
A second.
Thank you. All right, Hanson,
Aye.
Farrell,
Aye.
Gallo, aye, Wilson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Leo,
Aye.
Geddes.
Aye.
All right. Final item on the agenda, is there any other business? Just unanticipated business for the committee? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Aye.
Darrell,
Aye.
Gallo, aye, Wilson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Leo,
Aye.
Geddes.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Did it before 18.